Hi, I'm Voltam, founder of the Linux Distro community. The Linux Distro community is a place for people to hang out and discuss Linux, Linux distros, software, and open source. The Linux Distro community is a community funded by its members for its members. We are a friendly, welcoming community that encourages people who use Linux operating systems and software to share their passion and knowledge with other people. We believe that when people share information freely, everyone benefits. Our community is also a great place for people who have been using Windows and have been thinking of making the switch to a Linux operating system, a place where they can benefit from the sharing of knowledge. Linux operating systems and software developers have given us all the ability to choose from hundreds of free Linux-based operating systems and thousands of free programs. The least we can do is freely share our knowledge and share with others our experience whilst using this software. If you are using Windows right now and have had enough of all the viruses, spyware, malware, and are thinking, there must be a safer way to use the internet. Please consider using a free Linux operating system today. There are many to choose from. Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Pinguy OS, and Zorin OS are just some of the more popular, easy-to-use operating systems. And for the person who wants more of a challenge from their Linux experience, there is also Arch Linux. Millions of people only use their PC for internet, social networking, voice and video chat, and email. If they only knew that you can do all that on a Linux operating system safely and securely. That's where a community like ours comes in. Not only are we passionate about Linux operating systems and free software, we want other people to feel the freedom that we do when we use our computers. This is all part of a bigger picture, that as humans, we are rewarded by helping others. We were born to share and promote freedom. We'd love to see you become a part of the Linux Distro community. You can voice chat with us on Mumble or text chat with us in IRC. Head over to linuxdistrocommunity.com for details. Join in today in the sharing of knowledge and the freedom that a Linux operating system gives people. Thank you.
Thank you, Voltam, for that introduction. Today on the Zoo, we are mad and we are not going to take it anymore. Today we are talking about hardware and software life expectancy. We are not OS agnostic in today's episode. If you are running Linux, Windows, or Mac, you may have run into hardware failure right after the warranty expires. Bummer. Before we start our rant, I would like to pass the mic over to Total OS Today.
Thank you, Spatry. Just one moment. Your voice just blew out one of my speakers. There we go. That's better. Yes. No, I'm just kidding. We have.
Did the warranty expire on your speakers?
Darn it! I'm looking at the receipt now. It expired yesterday. Thanks, Spatry. We're good to go, I think. Let me just adjust my headphones. I'm moving it a little bit farther from my ear. Okay. We do have another terrific show, as Spatry just said. And you can take his word for it, not mine. No, I'm just kidding. Spatry, thank you. We have terrific show, I do believe. We have on the show C. Smith, we have Edward, we have J.D. Will, we have OptiChip, we have Oscalit, of course, Spatry, we have the Linux guy, we have myself, Toss Today, and William. Now, Spatry, is today's show something about rants? Is that correct?
Yeah, we're going to have a good old-fashioned rant. You know, and I think it's been a while since we've had a rant, and I think it's about time that we've had one.
I totally agree. Can I go first?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm not quite as mad as you, but just a couple things I wanted to say about this topic in general. We do live in a disposable society, for better or for worse, and technology does change pretty quickly. Now, that being said, as far as something being obsolete, like almost after you buy it or maybe sometime after, I think I mentioned this before, but back in 2006, 2007, I bought one of HP's last Windows XP multimedia laptops because it was a good deal. It was half price. And it said, pardon me, it said Vista capable. Well, it wasn't entirely accurate because I did get the free upgrade disc from HP, great, but at the time the machine only had 512 megabytes of RAM. I'm thinking, Vista ready? Really? Anyway, I got the disc, I installed it, and of course it ran like horse stable. So I reinstalled XP, but after that happened, I kind of felt like I was ripped off, like the machine became almost obsolete immediately. Now, after putting in 2 gigs of RAM, Vista, well, now it has Windows 7, it ran fine. But at the time, I believe it was more a case of being misinformed about something. But of course, I had a feeling it wasn't going to work. But that really ticked me off because I felt right after installing Vista, I felt almost as obsolete as Vista should have felt. But that being said, you know what? This is the world we live in. So is there a way to really get around it? I'm not so sure.
Okay, and you made some good points there. It seems like it's kind of malicious what they're trying to sell you into. You're buying hardware that's inferior. For this operating system, you have to upgrade and that sort of thing. And then, of course, that's more money that you're shelling out to have a product that's supposed to work like the label says that it is supposed to. Now, interestingly enough, I purchased a brand new netbook, and right after the warranty expired, the battery started to go on it. Now the battery is completely dead, and I can't even find a battery for this thing because it's one of these exotic off-the-wall kinds of things. And it was really funny because last week in the pre-show chat, we didn't get a chance to discuss this on our show, and everybody was getting really heated up about different things, about hardware failure, that sort of thing, quality, just the fact that a lot of the hardware that is manufactured nowadays, it seems like these OEMs deliberately make these things so that they will fail after a certain period of time. Now, as most of you may know, and I'm saying that this is for every brand that's out there, but most of the time, if you go into one of these computer shops, such as Best Buy, Circuit City, or wherever you are in the world, you buy a new computer, and most of the time, it only has a 1-year warranty on it. And they want you to shell out the extra $50, $60, or more dollars just to get the extended warranty. Now, of course, it's smart to get that extended warranty, because if you don't, odds are something might happen after your initial 1-year warranty expires. And it makes me think, geez, so the manufacturer's basically telling me that this computer really is only good for 1 year.
You make some good points, but here's the thing, Spatry. If, let's say you buy a new PC, and let's say this new PC is, we'll say, $300. Now, if you're being told that this PC will last you 6 years, or say 5 years or whatever, versus if you buy a PC that's $900, which one do you think is probably going to become the least obsolete in less time? Probably the one that probably you spend more money on. So, buyer beware. If, for example, for myself, I will never buy another single core machine. It just doesn't make any sense. I will buy a dual core or maybe a quad core because at least it will not go obsolete immediately. Now, if I buy it and we're talking 3, 4, 5 years later, I already know what's going to happen, but I'm somewhat semi-educated, so to speak. But for the common consumer, it can be a bit, shall I say, distracting in terms of what to buy at what specific price. Would you say so?
Yeah, the fact is that hardware breaking down after a certain amount of time is more for safety than anything else.
Interesting that you point that out. So, apparently our technology that we're having here is volatile. Is that what you're trying to tell me here?
Yes, if you leave it going for a longer amount of time than it does now, it is going to become volatile.
Now, one thing, though, a lot of people go out and buy computers, and a lot of times it was my understanding that computers are actually meant to where you could actually leave these things on and leave them running continuously. JD Will, you're next.
Okay, about the warranties, I like that the companies include warranties. I mean, unless you break it yourself or purposely or something like that, it's good to know that you don't have to pay for it. Sometimes, I kind of think sometimes that it's like a curse or magic, something that your computer actually goes out like maybe a day or so after the warranty goes off, or your mobile device and stuff like that. But I think people should also take care of their hardware, and just to make sure it doesn't break down and make their components last longer than advertised.
OptiChip has some knowledge on warranties. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, for home users and people who buy machines like off of the internet or go into a Best Buy, those name brand computer companies are going to give you a 1-year warranty on the standard hardware. The stronger built machines by some of those same name brand companies are actually business machines where they do give you a 3-year warranty. So just because it's a Dell and you buy the inexpensive one doesn't mean that Dell doesn't make great products. They also do make a business type product that will last for 3 years. In fact, Dell servers come with up to 5-year warranty on their servers. They don't support them any longer than 5 years because they can't afford to keep all that old hardware around on their shelves.
And the thing is, a lot of times software requires you to upgrade as well. Now, one thing that I have noticed in the past few years, it seems like they're not. I haven't seen any 6 gigahertz computers. They're just putting more cores on these machines now, and still running them at a ballpark, let's say 2 to 3 gigahertz. I could be wrong here, but they're just now adding more cores rather than speeding up the processors and that sort of thing. We'll get into the software issues later on, but some things that you can do to improve hardware life. I'd like to hear some tips on that. I know, for one thing, I leave my laptop on all the time. I have it on a stand, and I actually have an external fan that's always blowing on it to help keep it cool, and that sort of thing. And another thing I notice on laptops is either the inverters or the bulbs tend to burn out on them quickly. So one thing that I always recommend is if you're like me and you're doing something like that, to either keep the lamps turned all the way down or just shut them off if you're using an external monitor. OptiChip has a comment. You go next.
Hard drives are, pretty much where everything sits. And when people turn on and off their machines on a daily basis, that puts extra stress on the hard drive. So one of the better things to make your hard drives last a little bit longer is try to leave them running so that you don't have to worry about that initial shock of turning the hard drive on and spinning it up every day. That will make your hard drive last a little bit longer.
That's a good tip. And, it's funny. In terms of quality, where hard drives are concerned, I still swear by Western Digital drives. I've had many different manufacturers and that sort of thing, and then I've even had hard drives drop on the floor, and the Western Digital drives just continued to work, whereas the Seagate and the other brands that I've used, you drop a hard drive, you might as well replace it. It's going to have bad sectors all over the place. Go ahead, William.
Okay, in terms of the hardware part, I have had slight issue with a few solid. I had at least one corrupt on me before, and an SD card going thunk. It means that right later on, and I was very mad because I always use those cards, but they failed after so many uses, and then, even though it's supposed to last for. But I also get annoyed for hardware failures. That's the end of my opinion.
Edward, we haven't heard from you yet.
Yeah, it always seems like your warranty runs out just after, or something happens to your product where it's not actually covered under the warranty. It was an interesting point that you made about the hard drives better off if it's constantly on, because mine's on 24/7. People don't tend to go for the product that's got the most warranty, they go for what specs it has on it. So if you see a desktop that's more powerful and faster than the one a bit cheaper, and you've got the extra cash, you're more likely to go for the one that's going to be better performance. Or say if it's a phone, you want one with a better camera or a better and faster phone, you're not going to think, oh, well, that one's got an extra 6 months warranty on compared to the other one. And you just don't really expect it to go. It's only when your warranty finishes that you're proper possessive and proper careful on your products.
OptiChip.
One thing for people who are looking for a really good machine that's going to last a long time is you buy specific pieces of hardware. And the only way that you can really do that is either go for an internet site that allows you to pick and choose exactly what you want, or you go to the local shop. You don't go into Walmart, you don't go into Best Buy and pick up the machines there, because those are not going to be the machines that are going to perform for you day in and day out. If you go to a local computer shop, they'll build a machine for you, they'll use the parts that you want them to use, and usually the local shops will give you a 3-year warranty with whatever you purchase from them. You're going to purchase it for a little bit more, but it's going to last you a great deal longer in the long run.
Exactly. And it was also mentioned on IRC earlier that it is advantageous to build your own machines. Linux of Us also wanted to mention that Western Digital and Fuji hard drives, before they sold off the company, are among the best hard drives made for years worth of use in general. Interestingly enough, also, I have an IBM ThinkPad, a 233 megahertz machine. And this computer, my goodness, this thing's like a Honda. I mean, it just keeps going and going and going. And although it's still running Windows 98, I'm really pleased that, I have a piece of hardware that is still working and is still in use today. All right, and next we have Oscalit.
Just working off what Edward said. Edward said people choose what computer comes with the best spec and not the warranty. I don't really see it that way. People normally choose, okay, what's the best value for money? That's personally how I would do it myself. If I see something that's valuable in money, I'm just like, that's cheap. I only have this set amount of money. I'm going to get that. I don't look at the specs. I don't look at the warranty. I just ask, is it in my price range? If it is, I get it.
That's a good point. And also another thing, I do look at the specs, but I also look for a brand that I have come to trust. For instance, I have been an AMD kind of guy for many years, and it doesn't matter whether I'm getting an ATI or an NVIDIA with it, just as long as I get the AMD processors. I happen to love those. I've been able to get a lot of good life out of those processors and that sort of thing. But so I think it is a mixture of both what you and what Edward had to say. Linux guy, we haven't heard from you yet.
I really like AMD processors. I mean, I'm using one right now. It's very good. It's a processor that has the video integrated onto the chip. That way it doesn't, have the need for an extra graphics card or anything like that. But according to AMD, this processor, I think it's called an APU, Accelerated Processing Unit. It bundles a video chip with a processor and basically integrated graphics. And I've done some video tests on it, and it works very well. I mean, it's probably one of the best integrated graphic type chips on the market. And if you're really into that, I recommend you getting it. And it also helps you keep your laptop cool too. That way it doesn't have an extra component to cool.
Total OS today.
One moment, I must terminate these viruses. Okay, I'm back. Price, I think, should be a factor. Look, I have that HP that I talked about. It's 6 years old. Never had a problem with it. I mean, like in terms of hardware, it has been stellar. Now, keep in mind that when it first came out, now this had the package with the dock, with the extra speakers, the dock, and the wireless keyboard and mouse. I mean, at that time it was loaded. I think it was normally $1,200, and I think I bought it for half price. So, as far as something being, reliable or something that, again, will not be obsolete, the more you spend, you would think you would get a better quality product. So, when I go out to buy something, yes, I look at specs and I look at value. And at the same time, I don't want it to be obsolete like in a year. But, you have to go out. The consumer has to go out with a frame of mind, like this. What price point am I comfortable to buy something that will not be obsolete, say, in 2 or 3 years? Now, if you're looking for something that's going to last you longer than that, you're going to have to pay more. Or you can buy the cheapest computer you have, knowing that in 2 years it'll be obsolete, and you don't care because you already know that. You buy it, you sell it, or give it away, or sell it to a school, then buy a new fresh computer. That's another way to look at it. You do have choices, but I guess what it comes down to for the consumers just to get the knowledge and get educated. And I guess listening to a show like this can probably help out the consumer the next time they go shopping.
My big thing is it do I have to buy a cell phone every 2 years? Why can't my cell phones last longer? Little things like that. And as you brought up earlier, yes, we are living in a disposable society. And even getting off of the high-end technology and computers and that sort of thing. Okay, let's say you went out and bought a toaster. Of all things, a toaster back in the 1970s, okay? A lot of you people probably can still use that toaster, but nowadays you walk into one of these department stores and buy a toaster, you're lucky to get a year or two of use out of it.
I remember back in the heyday of mobiles first coming out, I got a Nokia 3310, and that phone still works till this day. However, I went through, I think it's like 6 Blackberries now. They just break. No matter what you do to them, they just break. Whereas with a Nokia 3310, I could drop that thing. I even had it in the shower and the bath. God knows where that phone has actually been, and it still survives. Products are not made to the same quality as they used to be.
Like my parents and grandparents have always said, the more that the product's got, the more things that are likely to go wrong with it. And that's quite true, because the more advanced technology goes, the more chances of something going wrong. The simpler it is, the less things that are going to go wrong.
Well, look, if I buy something at the right price and it lasts me 2-3 years, I mean, cell phones are every 2 years, I don't mind. Computers, I want it to last at least 3 years. If it can, and I paid for it at the right price from the start, honestly, I don't have a problem with that.
It's really funny. I'm using a high-def television that's hooked up to my laptop. I bought the TV brand new, okay, and the remote control didn't work. Now, the thing is, I don't have a car to drive across town. I actually took the TV home in a cab, and I'm thinking to myself, geez, I am not going to drive this all the way back to the store just for, a remote control. But funny, the other day, I decided to pull a screwdriver out and do some tinkering with the remote control, and I was able to get it to work. But it seems that today, a lot of our technology that we're purchasing, items and devices are getting smaller and smaller, and there is a cost that comes with that. Obviously, the materials that they're using aren't as sturdy as they used to be, and we can start seeing some breakage occur there.
Spatry, I think that most people now, with the economy the way that it is, all of these products are economy driven. People are trying to get the cheapest thing possible for their money, the most bang for their buck. So I think that whether or not these companies make the best product, they try to pawn it off as at least the least expensive one, except for Macintosh, of course.
Yeah, it's really funny. I remember seeing a movie, and I can't remember the name of it, where somebody just puts a few coins into a coin-operated machine, and then this disposable cell phone comes out that they just, it's like a piece of paper phone, and they just make their call, and then once the call is over, they just crumble up the phone and throw it away. Is this the direction that we are headed with our technology?
Maybe.
That would be interesting to see, though, coin-operated machines offering like little tablets and that sort of thing someday in the future, where, eventually we'll start seeing these tablets coming out that are only designed to work for a week or two, like a little party travel computer or something like that. But in today's economy, I will have to agree, people are looking for the best bang for their buck, but they also want to make sure that they are getting their money's worth. And so by taking a few extra steps, taking a little extra care, for instance, if you purchase a new cell phone, the first thing you want to do is buy a glove for it, obviously, because if it's going to drop on the ground or something like that, you don't want your screen to break and that sort of thing. So having that extra layer of protection is always handy. Linux Guy, you're next.
Yes, speaking of having more bang for your buck, I bought this laptop because I thought it had the most bang for your buck, and it turns out I was right. I'm very pleased with it. there were two variants of this laptop that I was, trying to choose from. There was an Intel and an AMD. I've always been fond of AMD, and I always will be because, their processors get more bang for their buck. And, let's see, it was a toss-up between this AMD A8 APU versus an Intel Core I think it was i5 or i7, I forget, but either way, the Intel Sandy Bridge processors have the integrated graphics, the Intel HD 3000. I think it wasn't really that good for gaming because, I kind of like to game a lot and on Windows, and I thought that the AMD was better mostly because of the graphics card.
Well, we've had a lot of food for thought here on hardware. Let's we've got about 15 minutes left here, so let's talk a little bit about software. Now, obviously, software life expectancy, we really don't have to worry that much about it in Linux because, hey, the free and open source community is always doing things to, give us updates to our software. Yes, some forks may die off and that sort of thing, but, there's other software that comes in to replace it. But let's suppose you have an office, okay, and you're using a proprietary office. Okay, and so let's say you have a sister office that's using a later product, maybe a different company, and they're sending you documents that you can't open with your older software, and now you have to obviously pay for an upgrade to be able to look at or even edit those documents. And of course, Edward's saying open office is the solution in that case. But but the thing is, a lot of people are afraid to try free and open source software. They are just locked in to proprietary software. And I feel there should be a longer shelf life on software. I'll give you an example. Okay, for instance, we know that Windows XP had a good lifespan on that one. I still think that is the flagship operating system for Windows. The sad thing is there's no longer support for it, even though there were computers that were being sold 2 years ago that shipped with Service Pack 3. Now they want you to buy the latest Windows 7 starter package. And I feel that, if you're selling a software product of any kind, you should at least provide support, and I could be crossing the line here, for at least 5 to 7 years beyond the last day that you sell this particular item with the software on it. How do you see that, Total OS today?
I believe as far as XP goes, Spatry, they stopped selling those, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 years ago, but I believe you can still get support for another through 2014. So as far as that goes, they are giving you, I guess, officially 5 years after the last sale date. So I do agree that as far as Windows XP, it has lasted much longer than probably anybody expected. As far as that goes, kudos to Microsoft. I will say this, though, as far as the Linux side, I think that the 6-month release cycles are a bit too fast because then we go into questionable quality control. The software that worked in the past may not work now. But you mentioned, as far as XP, I would have to agree. I had it up to really 6 months ago, and there's nothing wrong with it. I think it is supported for 2 more years, and that's it. So, if somebody's looking to buy, I don't think you can buy Windows X. Well, I guess you can buy something used. But then if you buy it used, you really have to keep in mind that as far as the official support goes, I think it's 2014. So,
OptiChip.
Yeah, I use quite a few Windows XP machines still in our office, and we still have to support it. Microsoft's been really good about allowing the support for this product to go on and on and on. Their normal distribution releases every 3 years. So I'm kind of with Toss today about saying we need to slow down maybe a little bit on the Linux distro releases and maybe look at it once a year, maybe every year and a half.
Now, C. Smith has something to contribute about trying open source software.
Yes, schools I found are really fearful of open source software, and Microsoft kind of has a stranglehold on them too. Even if they could, they probably wouldn't try it because even though they would save millions on that.
I remember at my college quite a while back now, they were having a lot of problems. They said they didn't have enough money for a said piece of software. So I give them the open source alternative, and they were just like, it's free? I was like, yeah, it's open source. And they just sort of freaked out at the fact they could actually get something for free. And in the end, after around about 6 weeks of trying to convince them that it would work and it wasn't going to get hacked or any of that nonsense, it wasn't a virus, they finally got the thing that was open source. If schools were just educated about this thing, they would get it. It's just because Microsoft is like, here is the holy grail. Here is this massive company. If we get from them, we know it's safe. Whereas open source is like, oh, that's pretty small. How do I trust this? If we can show people and the education system, at least in the US or the UK, that something that's open source actually works, they will get it.
But I think the point is, a lot of companies are probably afraid to try free and open source software, mostly because they're not educated about the cost of ownership. Also, training is a consideration. Now, once they can get over the hurdle of training their staff on that open source software, and then they get free updates for as long as they wish to use it, that's a good thing. But a lot of people, I think, are just not fully aware of that. How do you see that, Total OS, today?
Well, I mean, if a company switches over, say, from Windows to, Linux, Ubuntu, or God forbid, Arch, sorry, Spatry, there is going to be a certain amount of training, retraining involved, and that's going to cost money. So what's more cost effective? Keeping a Windows operating system as long as you can, then buying the upgrades, or retraining your entire staff?
Oscalit.
I'd really like to talk about this. Munich, a while back, turned to Linux. All of their civil offices now use Linux. Their desktop computers that all their staff use is now Linux. I believe it's a fork of OpenSUSE. But they mentioned a while back that they were going to do this, and it's like 3 years later now, and they've mentioned they've saved, I think it was along the lines of $500 million. So think about that. They took the time and trained people how to use it. It's not very hard to teach people how to use a Linux distro that is like Ubuntu or OpenSUSE, because they're relatively easy to use, and it will save money. It may take a time to get there, but in the end, if you can teach people to use it, there is money to be saved, and that is what is really, really big about it.
But the long and short of free and open source is the fact that I've been reading articles time and time again that Linux professionals are in higher demand these days. There are more and more companies that are actually considering hiring these Linux professionals to maintain their servers and to actually maintain all the office equipment and that sort of thing. And interestingly enough, the Linux professional makes a lot more money in terms of a salary, but you also figure the company is going to save money as well, because now they don't need to have 10 Windows professionals to maintain all the computers and servers and that sort of thing. Now they only need one person to administer a Linux server and all of its thin clients and that sort of thing. So an interesting piece I figured I'd throw in there.
Did Oscalit say Munich?
Yeah, I believe it's Munich. It's somewhere in Europe. I do believe it's Munich, though.
Well, it's an observation, because if it's Munich, that's Germany. Germany banned Microsoft, so if there's no competition, sure, then their only choice would be Linux, right?
Not necessarily.
Quite funny. But this was quite a while back. It's just they actually mentioned like a couple of months ago that they actually made profit on it.
Okay.
Yeah, and OS X hasn't been banned yet, or I don't think they have been anyway. And I think we have a Mac user in the house that wanted to add something to this too.
I think he's customizing his Mac. Just give him a moment.
Just reminds me of that label. I think I've mentioned this on a previous show, but somebody sent me a picture on Facebook where where they have three people sitting in front of the computer. And it says an update is available for your computer. And the Windows user is going, oh no, not again. And the OS X user is going, ooh, $99. And the Linux user is going, yay, more free software.
But which one is going to work right now?
And Riley says Mac is horse stable.
Well, to be fair, I don't currently have a Mac. One day I will, and believe me, I will test it thoroughly. So that statement may or may not be true, but I would find it somewhat hard-pressed to believe that all of it is horse stable.
Mac is just, I don't know, it's just a rich college kid. It's like, oh, mommy and daddy, can you please buy me a Mac? And they're like, oh, no bother, Rupert, we'll buy you that Mac straight away. And it's like, you can get so much more better hardware for about half the price compared to a Mac. Like, the cheapest one, I was talking to someone earlier, and the cheapest one they find was like $1,200, which is insane for a computer.
It sure sounds like it. Spatry, you remember that news item, was it 2 weeks ago, about 20% of Macs with Windows viruses? So welcome to the club, Mac.
Yeah, and for those of you who haven't heard that little tidbit, you can visit Total OS Today's channel, or you can visit my channel and hit the news and nonsense, and it's in one of those shows. A matter of fact, episode 5 is going up either tonight or tomorrow. You guys might want to check that out. They're really a bag of laughs there. Okay, and OptiChip is next, followed by the Linux guy.
You know, you do have one really good option for a Mac. I don't know if anybody's ever thought of it, but you can load Linux on it.
Yeah.
Of course, OptiChip would come up with that great little fix. It's like, oh, Mac, you kind of suck. Just put Linux on it.
Yeah, but the thing is, I have noticed that some people are complaining that there is a few little hardware issues. The kernel hasn't matured enough yet, and so some people are having some issues with hardware and that sort of thing on their Macs trying to run Linux. Linux guy, you're next.
Yeah, I've used Mac a little bit. I find it to be kind of stable, but I haven't really done any like serious, tinkering with Mac or anything. But it kind of is pretty stable for what I used it for. I mean, it's mostly used for video editing and video production, and it's pretty good for that purpose.
Hey, what about Linux? I'm learning Blender, and let me tell you what, it's a lot of fun. You can do a lot of really great multimedia on a Linux machine. C. Smith, you're next.
Yeah, one last thing on the Mac, it cannot actually get rid of the Mac operating system as easy as installing Linux, mainly because of EFI.
Now, it's my understanding that many Linux distributions nowadays do have EFI support. And I'm sure we'll be seeing more here. Now, it looks like on IRC here, we've got a lot of fanboys in the house. I'm sorry, but everybody's saying pretty much that they don't like Macintosh. But you know what? We're all one happy family. We all use computers and that sort of thing. And, people are going to use what they want to use. And it's nice to see that Macintosh is capable of running Linux, especially now that they have Intel chips and that sort of thing in them. So that's always a plus. JD Will.
I think that you should buy something that's right for you. Not just like computers, like any type of electronic equipment like cell phones or appliances. Something that you think is going to last long and something that performs to what you want it to do.
Opti.
Spatry, I wish there was some kind of software or maybe a website that I could use to find information about the products that I want to buy. Well, that's right. There is something. It's called the internet, and you can search for things that you want to buy, and make sure that you do read all of the people's comments. If you go to Newegg to buy new hardware, they have these little egg symbols, and you can click and see what people have to say about the hardware that you're looking at purchasing. Read all of that information, suck it up, take that into account before you buy something, and you will never go wrong.
You took the words right out of my mouth, and that's exactly what I do. I carry my Android with me. A lot of times, though, when I go shopping for hardware and that sort of thing, I like to physically visit the store myself. But I will still go on CompUSA.com. I'll go on Tiger Direct. I will go on Newegg. I will put in the model numbers, and I will read the reviews and see what people have to say on those products. Very good point that you're making. And, it's just one of those things, even if you're just buying a peripheral and you're running a Linux system, the first thing I do when I'm buying a peripheral for my machine is I check online to make sure that it's going to be compatible before I put any money out on the counter. That's always very important.
Oh, you know what, consumers who are listening, forget all this. Just go for instant gratification. Buy what makes you happy now.
The devil's advocate there for you, and usually I'm the bad one on the Sinner Report, and it looks like Total OS today took it away from me. Well, folks, just for that, you get to do the closing, Total OS today. All right, well, folks, we have run out of time. I think that we had a wonderful conversation here. We got a lot of good tips on the show today, and everybody had a chance to vent a little bit. Very good. We have these conversations every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Total OS today, take us out.
Spatry, another great show. One thing we forgot to mention, I don't think it was mentioned, one final tip. Consumers who are looking to shop, ask your friends, ask your relatives who have bought, computers lately and see what they say. But on that note, another terrific show. As always, great information. Thanks to all the guests. Thanks to C. Smith, Edward, J.D. Will, OptiChip, Oscalit, of course, Spatry, Linux Guy, myself, Toss Today, and William. Another great, stimulating conversation. And best of all, Spatry, no one was terminated. Good job.
Right. And of course, I'd like to thank everybody who is in the listening room. And I think we've got a record-breaking turnout here. I've got so many names up on my screen, I can't even see them all. So, what a huge turnout today. I'm glad that all you guys popped in to listen to our show. And also, I'd like to thank everybody who is watching our show on YouTube. Put those comments in the space below. Thank you all for listening. We will see you again, same time, same channel, next week.
Today's show was brought to you by the Linux Distro Community. Visit us today at linuxdistrocommunity.com and chat with us on Mumble or in IRC on the Freenode network in the Linux Distro Community channel. The Linux Distro Community. Freedom through the sharing of knowledge.